Welcome back to the Microsoft main stage today. I'm super excited to welcome our final speaker from this stage. If you're just joining us, if you're coming back over from other sessions, I hope you've been so inspired by this lineup. I am totally blown away by some of these professionals and some of the words of wisdom and things that they're sharing with us. And I happen to know Stela. So Stela is with Chemi-Con in Moses Lake, where she has been a human resource director she's been with Chemi-Con for 23 years. And if you have not yet had an opportunity to be out interviewing for careers, a human resource person is definitely going to be somebody who you come in contact with, who's going to do your interviewing, who's going to really be that person who sees the types of skills that are needed and who's going to evaluate the skills that you bring and the awesome opportunity that you have um, for that role. And so we have an opportunity to lean in and listen to Stela this afternoon as she tells us a little bit about some tips. After all those years, she's had some opportunity to see maybe some good, the bad, the ugly, some awesome, and she's going to share some of that experience with us today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Stela.
Thanks, Sue. So, yep, I've been doing this for over 23 years now. Interviews are one of my favorite things to do. I love talking to people and finding out about their strengths and what they think are their weaknesses. And I've got somebody at my door. What can I say about interviews? So I've had some choice ones. Let's talk about what some of the do's are before we hit the don't, shall we? So some of the do's: dress for the interview, for the job that you're interviewing for. So if you're interviewing for a position, let's say you're going to do packing in a farm or in a manufacturing facility, don't go to the interview wearing a suit. You're like overshooting it, right? You want to wear a pair of clean jeans and a nice shirt, something that goes along with it, but always look clean and presentable, always. If you're going for a job like at a bank, well, then most definitely you want to wear a suit or a nice dress or slacks. You want to dress the part. That's probably the best advice I can give you right there. The other piece of good advice is have good eye contact. It's really important that when you're interviewing, you are looking at the person or the people who are interviewing you, because sometimes it'll be a group interview. Like at my company, we usually do interviews in 2 at a minimum to 3 or more people sitting on the panel to ask questions and to get to know you, to see if you're the right fit for this particular department and our company. So be comfortable, make sure you're giving direct eye contact. Try not to be too fidgety. And I know that's easier said than done when you're nervous. I'm not saying don't talk with your hands, because obviously you can see I can't do that. It just won't work. So make sure though that you're comfortable. Don't be drumming the table, looking around constantly. You want to show them that you're interested in the job. Pay attention to the people. Look them in the eye. Be respectful. Yes, no, yes, sir, no, ma'am. All that's great. Be respectful. It says a lot about a person. When you're doing an interview, unless they are extremely relaxed, don't call them dude or by some other name that might be some word of the year. Make sure that you're showing that you realize that they have the ability to help you out. Also, remember, during an interview, they are looking to hire somebody. They're looking to find the right person for their job. So in actuality, you have a lot more ability than you think. So don't get yourself all worked up and all nervous. Take a few deep breaths and go into the interview, ready to talk to this person or people about your job, right? About what you want. Be honest with them. Always be honest. If you see that they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what are your 5-year goals? Tell them the truth. In 5 years, I hope to have graduated from college, or in 5 years, I hope that I can be a lead at your company, or in 5 years, I hope I have enough money to buy a house. Be truthful. We're hoping you'll spend a lifetime with us, but we're realistic and are just hoping more for 2 years than nothing, than a year or 5 years. So be honest when they ask you those sort of things. If things can show up when they do your reference checks, again, be honest. Why did you leave this company? Well, it wasn't a good fit for me. That's okay. But if you were terminated, you might want to give a little explanation, because chances are we know the truth is somewhere between what you're saying and what the company will say, right? So just, keep it politically correct. You don't have to get into all the details, but let them know the truth. It wasn't a good fit for me, or I left for better opportunities. Think through what you're saying. Make yourself sound like you're open. Of course, be open, be honest. A couple of the questions that we ask on a regular basis and tend to throw people off is, what is your best quality and what is your worst quality? And it's a funny thing. So the best quality, usually somebody's willing to tell me right away, oh, I'm always at my job and I'm there on time and I'm a hard worker. Great. Those are good things. If I ask you what your worst quality is and you've just referenced things that are about work, then reference something about work. For me, it'd be, I'm a terrible filer. I stack it up forever, but I get it done. It's not a great quality, but I was honest and they know right then and there, okay, we might have to remind her to do her filing once a week or every couple of weeks. Okay. So be extremely honest, even if it makes you feel like maybe you won't get the job. If it's going to make or break you getting a job, it probably wasn't a good job for you anyway. Okay. So again, think about those things, be real honest. One of the worst interviews I ever had, and thank goodness he was already employed with us, he fell asleep during the interview. I mean, asleep. Yeah. I did wake him up, but he wasn't employed. He had worked all that night. So if you're going for a job interview, and let's say you did work the night shift and you're going for an interview in the morning, let them know, I just got off work. I'm a little tired. I hope you don't mind. I brought in a coffee, or I brought in some cold water to keep me alert and ready to answer. They're going to be fine with that. You're being honest. The fact that you got off shift and then came in for an interview says a lot about you. Be relaxed. This piece of advice doesn't work for everyone, but like when I was in my interview, I noticed the joking that was going on with a couple of people that used to work here. And so I joined in on their joking around. All of us, there was 3 people interviewing me. We were all very comfortable at that point because I saw what was going on and I joined in. That doesn't work for everybody, but remember that they are looking for someone who's going to fit in. So be relaxed again and be you. There's nothing wrong with who you are. You are just the right person for you. Now it's a matter of finding the right job, the right atmosphere that's just right for you. I needed someplace where I could talk. I needed someplace where joking was acceptable because I need to laugh throughout a day. And that's how this job worked out so well for me. It hit all those things. And that's exactly what they were looking for too. So remember, you want to be who you are. Don't try to turn yourself into what they're looking for. Be authentically you. Okay? Let's see, more on the interviews. So one of the other things I like to see when I'm doing an interview is that the person has thought through some questions that they want to ask of us. Now it could be, what is this shift? What is the shift that you want me to work? Or do you have rotating shifts? In other words, do you work days and nights? You work several days in a row, get several days off, and then you switch to nights for several days and off several nights. There's all sorts of rotating shifts. So you want to find out, what is the shift work? Do you offer insurance? What is that insurance like? Ask those things. It shows that you've put some forethought into it. A lot of people will go on the websites of the place they're interviewing and research the company so they have a good idea of what goes on. Now, sometimes that doesn't work. For a company like mine, you would find our parent company, but that doesn't tell you much about what we do here at Chemi-Con. But do your best to try to see if you can find out or ask the questions. You know, I couldn't find anything online. What is it you guys do? What work would you be expecting from me? Those are good questions. We want to know that you're interested enough to ask us those sort of things. Um, Ask questions like, do you have medical insurance? And how do I go about getting that? How much is it per paycheck? Do you mind me asking? Ask those questions. It shows us that you're really seriously thinking about what could be coming in the future with this job, and that's important. Is there room for growth? That's another great question. Some companies have lots of room for growth. When I started here, I was an admin assistant. I moved up to the purchasing assistant to HR, and then it just kind of developed into more. Now I'm a manager. And it was because I saw the growth potential. That's what got me excited to be here. But that also meant that I had to work harder to learn my current job and do my studying to prepare for the next job. And ask the company if there is room for growth. Simple. Ask them if they have, if they will help pay for your schooling. My company paid for my schooling. All I had to do was promise that I would get high grades and that I would stay for an additional 2 years. That was about 20 years ago. I think I met their need. But those are good questions. You want to think about your future with that company. Not everybody stays at a company 23 years. But if you'll stay 5 years, that says a lot about you. That's a good retention time. And I know at 17 and 18, 5 years seems like so long, but it's not. It goes by pretty quick. You want to make sure that, again, you are relaxed and you are you. Okay. What other questions? There's so many other questions you could be asking. You could ask more about the job and what it entails. You could ask about education, ask about how the increases work. That's an interesting question. Do you guys have bonus or profit sharing? Good questions. And questions we don't mind answering during an interview. If you're asking questions, you're showing us that you have an interest, and that's important. Make sure, again, you present yourself well, looking people in the eye, asking questions, answering their questions. And if you need to stop and think about the answer to your question, that's great. Take a time and say, you know what, can I just think about that for a moment? Like that, what's my worst quality? That usually throws people off big time.
Delivery on the way back, Zach or Saul?
Sorry about that. That usually throws people off in a big way when we ask those questions, because when you're going for an interview, what do you want? You want to look your best. So to be asked that question can throw you off. It's okay. They're waiting. I have had people look me straight in the eye and say, I don't know, which, depending on who I'm interviewing, ends up in a joke, or, well, what would your previous employer say? Because then they'll think of something maybe that they didn't do as well there. Oh, another good question is, what would your previous employer say about you? Be honest, because chances are we're calling them. So tell them, I was always at work, I worked hard, or I had an attendance issue for a little while, but that's all been resolved. And now I'm at my work every day on time, whenever I'm scheduled. Do you plan for vacations? Of course, plan for vacations. Those are important. But you let them know. When I'm going on vacation, I always make sure that there's plenty of notice. I try not to do anything last minute. That's a fine answer. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody can plan ahead for being sick or having family that is sick. But as long as they know that you're going to try your best to be there every day, it makes a huge difference. Remember that, again, they're looking to hire somebody. They're looking for that person that is just right for their company. They're looking for that person that's going to stay a while and grow within the company. our original vice president started here as a production operator. So he was just running our machines. He had no authority. He just worked on machines. He moved up to a lead, which meant he was responsible for the other operators. Then he moved up to a supervisor. Then he moved up to an assistant manager, then to a manager, and then he became our vice president because he asked questions and he continued to grow. Because although he understood what the operator position was, he decided he needed to understand the machines better. Then he decided he needed to understand how the people work together better. That's all good stuff when you're doing your interviews, to ask, how do the departments interplay together? How can I grow within your company? Ask those questions. It shows us that you want to make a career, which is what I've done. I made a career here. I started out as an assistant, and now I have assistants. So all in your hands. We want to find the right person. We want to find the right you to join our team. Let's see. I know I'm getting close. 31 seconds. I'm good. If you have other questions, I'm sure that you'll be able to get in contact with me. I'd love to help you out. I love seeing people succeed. It's a huge gift to get, to help somebody do better in their career. If you get into the right company, your HR person or your manager or supervisor, they're going to be there to help you grow and to get better at what it is you do. That's always our goal. Always. Hi, Sue.
Hello.
I had my timer going. Could you hear it?
I did. This is awesome. This is such great advice. All right, so I have a
Thank you.
question.
Yes.
From a human resource director's perspective, is it okay if I bring a notepad in with me to an interview?
Oh, of course. Because
And
at that point, you're trying to make sure you don't forget some of the answers to your questions. Or because you are going to be nervous, you already have your questions written out, so that you don't have to remember it after you've just spoke with a group of people for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Your questions are ready to go. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
That's
and so
exciting.
what another question that might make me a little bit nervous in an interview, what do I do if somebody asks me a term I don't know? Is it okay to say I don't understand or I don't know during an interview?
Yes, because a lot of companies have their own little lingo and they forget to think about what it could mean to somebody else. When I started here, I said something about IA. To me, IA is internal auditing. For them, it was an actual VAT. So yeah, it's important. Ask the questions. You need to make sure that you know what they're talking about.
That's awesome. Okay, so one last question that's
Yeah.
coming in. If I'm interviewing, like if I come in for an interview and there's a group of people, is there a different way of addressing like a group of people that are asking questions versus like a one-on-one interview? Do you have any tips for how to handle that situation?
Well, the only tip I could say is that look the person in the eye who's asking you the question. That's probably the easiest. Otherwise, just assume you're like in a room with a bunch of friends. When you're answering that question to that one person, you usually look at them or you look at somebody else just to make sure you understood the question and come back. And that's fine. It happens all the time.
That's awesome. Thank you. These are great. So, a good idea to practice an interview?
Oh, if you want to practice an interview, have somebody you're friends with give you an interview. Have them ask you questions. And I'm sure that you could find interview questions online. And they'll show you what the basic questions are. I'm sure we all ask a bunch of the same questions, but that'll help you get comfortable. Just don't get all nervous because you've got those answers memorized and then they don't ask you. Because that happens.